down and ended up, as my mother often says, making something of myself despite myself. She also says to me, "Thank God you could sing, or who knows where you'd have ended up." I don't like to think about that. Years later, I returned to Vancouver for a series of sold-out concerts. It was a giant contrast to the days when I was busking on the streets for a buck or two to buy cigarettes and wine. I couldn't believe I was there, standing on a beautiful, brightly lit stage, singing my songs for people who had paid to see me. I felt vindicated somehow. I'd survived the stupidity of my youth. After one of the shows, I had the limo driver take me across the Lionsgate Bridge to the North Shore, where I'd gotten myself into so much trouble. I had him drive me by my old apartment building on 3rd Street, where I had lived 25 years earlier. It was boarded up to no one's surprise, least of all mine. It stood there like a tombstone. The pouring rain added nicely to the movie I was creating in my head. I saw my young self staggering in drunk through the beat-up front door. I closed my eyes and clearly pictured the old mattress on the floor, the ironing board I used as a kitchen table, my beloved cassette deck. I sat in the car for 10 or 15 minutes with the window down, looking out at the street. The cold rain was spitting at my face. I won, I thought to myself. I won. I felt a weight lift off my heart. I said a prayer in my head about gratitude and forgiveness, and then I had the driver take me back across the big bridge to my hotel. I lay in my bed that night and thought about how I'd gotten to where I was that day. I fell asleep smiling. Chapter 1. The Grand Opening. I was reluctant, to say the least, to get here. My mother tells the story on pretty much every birthday I have ever had. She most often smiles, a laugh lurking inside of her little bird-like chest, and says, "When you were born, I said, 'Let me die, let me die.'" She really isn't kidding. For some reason, that line always made me laugh too. Not that it was a prelude to a happy tale, but it was a funny one nonetheless. She'd go on to say that the doctor just let her suffer through 2 long days of pushing and pushing and pushing to no avail. I guess I was backwards or feet first, or probably just refusing to come out of her at all. Why would I want to fly out into the abyss without really knowing what in God's name I was getting myself into? I'd still be in there now if I had my way. One thing about being born, it's hard for everybody involved. You learn within a few seconds that it's not going to be easy being a person. The first breath must really be something. I'm kind of glad I don't remember it. The human body is an extraordinary thing. What it's capable of doing is quite simply miraculous. I can't even begin to figure out how an 8 or 9 or, God forbid, 12-pound body inches its way out of something that seems to be smaller than the slot in a slot machine. And never mind that, after the 12-pound body has fought its way out of the womb, the whole bloody, layer upon layer, works suddenly, just folds itself back together like a book with a few ripped-up pages, like nothing ever happened, kind of like a slinky. My mother would disagree with me, I'm sure, as something did indeed happen. I'm in pain just thinking about childbirth. In fact, I suddenly have to fold my legs together and hum Happy Birthday. My poor mother, all that suffering, and for what? Oh yeah, me. My mom said that back in those days, they didn't just give women C-sections like they do now. I mean, now women pick the day they'd like to have their baby. Yes, doctor. I have March 27th open after 4 p.m. after my pedicure. I can just picture that in my head. In 1962, they made you push until you thought you couldn't push anymore. Epidurals weren't even that common. It was natural childbirth or bust. She almost did bust. "I thought it was either going to be you or me," she'll often say. I tell my mom that I am really very glad that it wasn't either of us. I always ask the same questions. Where was Dad? Wasn't he in the room? Didn't they let men in the birthing room? "He didn't want to come in," she says. "He went home and went to bed while I was lying there thinking I would die." My mom was apparently just about to throw in the towel on the both of us when the doctor appeared.